Okay, welcome back, class. So we talked about gross domestic product, three ways we use to calculate it: output, expenditure, total factor income. And gross domestic product is a pretty darn good indicator of where, where our economy is going and how basically we're doing. Okay? The two biggest evils for macroeconomists are, the biggest one is unemployment, because you know as well as I do, unemployment can affect society drastically. I mean, when folks have a job and they're doing something, it doesn't really matter what job it is. I mean, to have a job or not to have a job, there's such a huge difference, and so it's really important. It's important on our outlook, how we deal with things. Like I said before, economics, we've got a little bit of sociology, a little bit of psychology, quite a bit of history. We got a little bit of everything in there. So unemployment is definitely the biggest of the two evils in macroeconomics. So let's take a look at it. All right? All right. And unemployment, we break it down in your book. They talk about three. We're gonna talk about four. So if you see a question on an exam and wants to know about the different types of unemployment, your book has three, but from our lectures we have four. Okay. All right. First one. First type is what they call frictional. Now this is something, we have this in society all the time. People are always changing jobs, especially in this country. People move or they change jobs pretty rapidly. Some countries are known for the people who kind of stay put. Not so much in the United States. We have an economy that people will move from one city to another, or they'll stay in the same city, but they'll move from one job to another. Now, let's say you have an engineering degree and you're pretty skilled, but you're just tired of living here in Michigan. You're tired with all the snow, so on and so forth. So you're going to move to California. All right. You put out some feelers. So there's about three firms that are out there that like you a lot, and they really would like to sit down and talk to you because they think they may have a job for you. Now, you've quit your job here and you're doing all the things necessary. You're packing up and getting ready, and you're moving out and all that good stuff. So you have put out the initial feelers. So you are looking for work, but are you actually working right now? Well, no, you're not. Okay, so that would be called frictional unemployment, meaning basically the gears between your skill set and what the companies out in California need and want. They're going to mesh, but they just haven't meshed yet. Okay, you're not overly concerned about being out of work for a long period of time, because you've got these three companies looking, and you're pretty confident one of them is going to hire you. So you're moving to California. You've got those three options. It's just that the company hasn't found you, or you haven't quite found that the perfect company yet. It's just that's why they call it frictional. It's just that there's always that little friction of people moving to another city, or you could even, this happened to a friend of mine. He had an engineering job over on, what city was he in? Novi, I think. And he quit the job, but there were 3 or 4. Now this is a case where he didn't actually have to move very far, but he did move a few miles. But it was a question of he was out of work He was looking for work, but technically he was unemployed, but it was frictional. It was just that his skill set hadn't completely meshed with the jobs that are open, okay? So normally we'll always have that type of unemployment in an economy. It's inevitable. You know, even when an economy, and this is the important thing to remember, even when an economy is doing well, we're still going to have folks switching jobs, you know, in and around town, or just up and moving to another state. You're always going to get that change, and it's not quite as severe as some of the other types of unemployment, because you know you've got a certain set of skills that companies want. You just haven't found that right one yet, so the gears aren't quite meshing. There's a little friction there. Okay, and it could only be for a month or so, but you know technically you are unemployed. Okay, so that's the first one, and we will call it frictional. And it's just that period of time between you and the company, you know, basically finding each other. All right. The second one is a little more involved, and it's a little more serious. Okay, that is structural unemployment, and structural unemployment also, unfortunately, is always with us. Or if you're going to say, well, we need structure always to be with us because we have an evolving economy. Okay, I'll give you that one. But structural unemployment has to do with, in an economy such as ours, that is constantly evolving. You know, new businesses are coming up, being created. Other businesses, due to technology or one thing or another, they are going down or failing. Something, just think of it this way, something in the nature or the structure of this particular area of the economy has changed, resulting in job loss, because your particular skill set is not quite needed exactly the way it was applied in the past. All right, so and a great example would be the buggy whip. Typically is the classic example of that. If you were the best, we go back to the 1890s, and you were the best buggy whip weaver in the country. Well, you know, when the automotive you know, these gas buggies came running up and down the street. You know, people were looking at them, and all of a sudden, more and more came on the street, and we didn't really need those horse-drawn carriages. Well, if you don't need the horse-drawn carriages, you certainly don't need the buggy whip. All right. So your market or your industry went from, you know, here down to about here, just, you know, supplying, you know, riding stables with buggy whips. So the structure, the nature of that part of the economy had changed. We went from horse-drawn carriages to horseless carriages, all right? So that means that's why it's a little bit more severe than just the frictional. Now, the economist, Joe Schumpeter, always, he labeled it the creative destruction, all right? In an evolving economy, we have this, what is called creative destruction. Some jobs or industries are being destroyed, while other new industries and jobs are being created. Well, that you know, that is true. The problem, you know, in terms of human suffering is, you know, a lot of times the new creative job, you know, by the time you get retrained, it's not quite as good as what you had. All right. Sometimes for some of the younger workers, perhaps it's really a good thing. All right, but it does involve more pain than frictional unemployment. And it can last a lot longer. It doesn't always have to have an unhappy ending either. For instance, the Fisher family, very well-known family out here on the east side, they owned, going back the turn of the century, what did they make? Well, they made the horse-drawn carriages, all right? Now, when the car companies came into being and they became more and more prevalent, what happened? Well, the Fisher family was able to make that transition from horse-drawn carriages to automobile bodies, all right? And that's why if you have a GM car and you open the door on the rocker panel, it typically says body by Fisher, because that is what they made, all right? Now, if you and I worked for Fisher Body going, years ago, we would, with the death of the horse-drawn carriage and the advent of the motor car, well, we would be structurally unemployed. But the important thing to remember is the Fisher family was able to retool their plant, so it wasn't a total disaster for us, okay? So we might have been out of work maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks while the plant was being retooled. But then we went back to work and we were making, carriages or, the body of the cars, for this new and emerging industry. And that's a happy ending. Not all of them are that happy. There is, as I said, there is more pain, and typically structural lasts a longer time than frictional, just for the fact that even if you do have a certain skill set, maybe only half of those skills will be needed in the new industry, and you'll have to be retrained, to go into that new industry. So structural unemployment, again, it's not a total disaster. It's more severe than frictional, but again, you'll still have that certain amount of skill set, and you can be retrained going into the new emerging industry. Now, the thing of it is that we have to remember is that even when an economy is doing well, we'll always have frictional and structural. We'll always have those two, all right? All right? We will always have frictional and structural unemployment, even when the economy is doing good, all right? So as a matter of fact, even as they say, if we are at full employment, even if we're at full employment, it doesn't mean everyone's working, all right? It means that, all right, we are at the employment level, not counting frictional and structural unemployment. So for instance, if these two added together came out to about 5% of the workforce, they would say if the economy is doing really well, we're at full employment. But it doesn't mean unemployment is zero. It means it's at this 5%. And they call that the natural rate, all right? It's the rate that we're going to have even when the economy is doing well. We will still have frictional and structural unemployment, okay? All right. Now, as I said, this gives us the natural rate. Depending on what book you've got, some books will peg it at around 5. I've seen it almost all the way up to 6%. So we'll always have 5 to 6% unemployment, which is these two, and that will be the natural rate. All right. All right. The third one. That is the most severe. Cyclical. That means something happened, we are in a recession, all right? It's going to kick us deeper. The unemployment figures are going to rise way above the 5 or 6%. So for instance, if this was the business cycle and normally we were at 5%, well, if we were at 5% and that was our natural rate, we might be in a recession, which perhaps would add another 3.5 points. So add 3.5 points, and that's going to give us this 8.5%. Okay, so cyclical is it's considered a variance from the natural, but so what? We're still out of work. All right, and the problem with it is this one could be long and painful. The unknown factor of it is probably the scariest, okay? Because these two, although, you know, structural is not great, at least you've got some semblance of saying, well, all right, I'm being retrained and I see the light at the end of the tunnel. With cyclical, we don't know, and that's the whole thing. Is it going to be a 1-year recession? Is it going to be an 18-month recession? Or is it, God forbid, is it going to be a 24-month recession? That unknown is a big, is very scary, all right? And that will add, this will add to our natural rate, and that will cause a lot of, I'm sorry to say, a lot of pain and hardship. All right? Okay. The last one is the least painful and the one that was caused the least disruption. That's seasonal, but we should touch on it. We should talk about it. It's not, it's probably the least painful of all of them, and it's just something that happens. It's something that happens every year. It happens every year, okay? The economy is expecting it each year, and here's the thing. It expects it to happen every year. It does happen, and the nice thing about it is the economy normally plans for this to happen. Example would be they have a bunch of Austrian ski instructors up at Boyne Mountain and Boyne Highlands, all right? Well, at the end of the season, they do this every year, I'm told, they just, they pack up and they've got a job, they go back to Austria. And I, as a matter of fact, I had talked to a couple of them, and that's what they do. They every year, they come over here and they really enjoy it, being the ski instructors here. But, with the season changing, boom, they go back to Austria. So it's something that the economy or the society, anticipates. They expect it to happen. It does happen, and they plan for it. All right? So in terms of pain, this one causes the least of all the pain. All right? Okay. So let's talk about a little bit about these terms, and we're going to talk some more about some other ones. But employment, and again, and a lot of this is pretty self-explanatory. Employment means the total number of people who are currently working, all right, employed in an economy. But, and here's the but it means that it counts folks who are part-time employees, all right, or even people who are perhaps, overqualified for the job that they have. Now, don't get me wrong. There is dignity in all work, okay? But let's face it, if you're working a part-time job, and even if it's paying you a pretty decent salary or a decent wage per hour, but, they're only allowing you to work 28 hours a week, it's going to be difficult to support yourself, let alone a family and children, on 28 hours a week, okay? Yet, you're still counted as employed, okay? So that can be a problem, all right? Another problem would be maybe you went and you got, you got an advanced degree in something, and you, for one reason or another, and again, I'm saying there is dignity in all work, but let's say you're mopping the floor at Burger King, all right? And you have an advanced degree in something. Well, are you employed? Yes. Are you putting that advanced degree to its best use? Well, probably not, all right? But technically you are employed, okay? So there are problems with that, all right? And since the Great Recession, as a matter of fact, the problem of part-time employees, we've always had part-time work. I mean, don't get me wrong. We've had, going back to the 1950s, when McDonald's was starting, a lot of folks would get part-time work there. But what I'm talking about now is the part-time work where, especially since the Great Recession, a lot of companies have come to find out, boy, it's really, it really cuts down on the labor costs to have the folks work 28 hours, not allowing them to work more, okay? And what does that do? Well, it eliminates all the fringe benefit. It eliminates the health care, it eliminates holidays, it eliminates all these costs. So, from a business standpoint, they save quite a bit of money. From the human aspect, for you and I, no, we can't support ourselves or our family on 28 hours a week. Yet, we are still considered employed. Okay? All right. Unemployment. Now, the key to unemployment is that you're not working, however, you are actively looking for a job. Problem here is a lot of folks, they've been looking for quite a while, and sometimes it's human nature. Let's say you've been looking and looking, and here it is, February, and the weather's really crummy, and you say, oh, the heck with it. I'm going to take the next month off until the weather starts getting better. Well, once you say that and you stop actively looking for work, you're no longer considered unemployed, okay? Even though you're not working. I have a whole skit for my in-class classes on this. I'm not on the campus yet. I hope to return soon. I have a lot of micro exercises too that are a lot of fun, and hopefully we'll all be getting back to class pretty soon. We won't have to be doing it strictly virtually. But anyway, unemployment, again, the key is you are not working, but you are actively looking for work, okay? The labor force, again, all we do is we add the number of folks who are employed and the number of people who are unemployed, and that is called the labor force, okay? All right. Now, in our next video we'll be coming out, we'll finish up with labor and we'll go into the price level. The inflation, the general rise in the price level, or deflation, the general lowering of the price level. Oddly enough, we don't want a lot of either one. High inflation, well, as we're looking at today, we're looking at around 7%. Not really good. I remember my first economics class, they were talking about it would be great if we could keep inflation at around, they were talking about 3.5% a year, because they were saying a real active, robust economy, it's going to be a little heated. It's going to generate about 3, maybe up to 4% inflation every year. When we get up into the 7%, now it starts to get a little scary. Now we need to do something. But again, we have to remember that we have been pumping a lot of money into the economy to help sustain it because of this pandemic, which we will get over. All right. Now, deflation also not bad. I mean, you and I go to the store and we see, oh, the prices have stayed the same, or they've actually gone down a little bit. That's usually that's pretty encouraging. You know, you and I would be kind of happy about that. However, if the price level really drops, 25, 30%, that can be an economy killer as well. So governments are afraid of high inflation and high deflation. Neither one is good, and that's why the government tries to prevent the big fluctuations in the price level. All right? Okay, everybody, keep up the good work. I will try to get more of these and some other videos posted soon. And so far, I think everybody's been doing a pretty darn good job. So I will see you next time.